What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Merge Tactics video. Today we are going to be ranking every single card in Merge Tactics from worst to best. Let me preface it by saying these are my opinions. I have different opinions than you guys do. I have different experience with cards than you guys do, but this is where I think that every single card is going to sit right now until the next round of balance changes. Obviously, this video is going to be made. I waited for a while, played with every single card, knowing what's good about them, what I don't like about them, waited for that first wave of balance changes to come through. So now we have a really good baseline to set for what is best and what is worst. And I'm going to start with the worst card at number 24. In my opinion, it is Skeleton Dragons. Now, you might be taken aback by this because Skeleton Dragons were very good at the beginning of the season when paired with the Witch, but the Witch has fallen off so hard, and with that, the entire Undead trait, Skeleton Dragons just really don't get you any value. I don't really play 4 out of 4 Rangers ever, and when I do play Ranger, I'm always pairing a Dark Goblin and an Archer Queen, and if one of those isn't available, then I always go for the Royal Giant. I never use Skeleton Dragons. Undead is very bad this season. They're very inconsistent. They split in the middle of shooting and they'll make you lose games. It literally just happened to me today. Overall, I just think their entire ability isn't perfect. And I said this last season too. I think it could be tweaked a bit more to find out exactly where they fall. I don't think they need to be overpowered, but just kind of balance them a bit more so they're more consistent and they don't split in the last second when you're, in a 1v1 and you need them to get the last kill so you don't lose the entire game, and they just decide to split instead of, killing the enemy. So that is why I have them at number 24, because they are providing no value to any teams in this current meta, in my opinion. Now, number 23, in a similar vein, is going to be the Royal Ghost. Royal Ghost is so bad right now. Assassins are not used anywhere. Royal Ghost is an undead and an assassin. Both of his traits are completely dead this season. Plus, he is just so much worse than other comps that do well in the backline. Thrower comps, even just some brutalist comps with Goblin Machine. There's just so many better ways to do what Royal Ghost does, and he's just a bad card. Like, his damage and his HP are not good enough. His ability got nerfed really hard a few seasons ago and then never really recovered. He was only ever really good when Assassins and Undead were strong. Since Season 1, he himself as a card, his stats have never really been exceptional. So overall, I just really don't think he fits anywhere in the meta right now, and he is not a good card. Similarly to that, we have the Golden Knight at number 22. He's just bad. Noble is bad. Assassin is bad. There's no value you get from playing either of them, and I just really don't think there's going to be any reason to play him until they fix one of those two traits. Noble is just one of the simplest traits, and because of that, it's never used. You never go for a Noble team. You just kind of take it if you can. Like, maybe you're going to have a Princess and a Prince, and you might as well get them both because they're Noble, and they don't give you any huge benefits outside of that. And just Assassins are so horrible, which is so sad to see because Golden Knight is my favorite card in the game. He was, when he was at the top of the meta for Ace Golden Knight and a few other comps like that, he was so much fun to play, and I loved playing those teams. And to see him fall from being the best card, in my opinion, for several weeks and even a season and a half in a row to being at number 22 out of 24, that's kind of sad. So I hope they fix Assassins. I hope they do some stuff to kind of balance these traits that have really completely fallen out of the meta this season. I think they've done a fantastic job with the rulers. They have, at least 3 of the rulers at a really level playing field right now. And I would love to see them do that with the cards as well. And I think, we just got to give him more time, but I hope Golden Knight gets restored to his former glory at some point. At number 21 is going to be another huge fall off within this season, which is going to be the Witch. Falling off from, where I would have had her in the top 5, pre-nerf to being at 21 is, I think, justified because they completely killed her. She is not usable. She's too expensive now for what she does. Her skeletons don't spawn nearly as much. Her skeletons got a huge nerf to themselves with their damage and their HP, and just this whole superstar trait being nerfed kind of took everything about her that was good, got nerfed to the ground, and so she is just a very bad card and a waste of 4 elixir. Again, the undead trait on her does absolutely nothing to help her, and the superstar just getting super nerfed did not do anything as well. So I really hope they kind of find a new spot for her. She was very strong when she was released, and then she got tweaked a bit, and then she was very strong this season, and now she got nerfed to the ground. So they just got to find a spot with her that kind of fits exactly where she needs to go. And I think she'll do really well once they find her a more balanced spot where she's not at the top of the meta and not nerfed into the complete ground. At number 20 is going to be Mini P.E.K.K.A. And I don't hate Mini P.E.K.K.A. this season, but I just think he himself, his stats are too weak P.E.K.K.A as a trait isn't horrible. It's not my favorite, but it's good for what it is. And Brutalist is a decent trait. If you watched my video yesterday, you know that I don't think it's really great, but it can be very good against some of the meta teams when those meta teams are very hard to get because everybody's going for them. So overall, I think, you know, the traits are okay, but the stats on mini P.E.K.K.A are just so bad. The HP is so low. I mean, you have a 3-star mini P.E.K.K.A and it has like 6 health bars. It's very, very weak. You know, he dies very quickly, and very rarely does he ever actually get a kill with a P.E.K.K.A trait to heal him up. So, you know, it's just one of those cards that, even though the traits aren't bad, the stats themselves are so bad that you kind of have to send him to the bottom of the list, and that's why he comes in at number 20. At number 19, for a similar reason, is Prince. Brawler is a very good trait. Noble is a decent trait, but just, you know, bad in application. And so his traits kind of put him, you know, smack dab down the middle, but his stats just really don't impress me. Prince has never been a good card to me. I think they need to rework his ability in a way where he's not just, you know, a sitting duck once he does his dash. He dashes in there, knocks the unit back. If he's at 2 or 3 stars, he knocks it back further. So then he's just sitting there in the middle of the enemy team and he just gets melted. And the extra brawler HP doesn't do much for him at all. You know, his damage after he hits that initial stun is not good enough to give him, you know, is not good enough to climb him up in the rankings. And he just, until he gets his ability reworked and kind of find out the sweet spot of where he needs to sit. You know, for a 3 elixir card, it's cool that he has an ability, but I just feel like he needs to do a bit more. You know, does he dash? You know, does he stun every few seconds? Something similar to Mega Knight or Bandit. I just feel like he's such a waste to put a ton of elixir into, even at 3 stars, because he just dashes in there and dies right away. And until they find a way to balance him better, I don't think he's going to be very high on the rankings. At number 18 is going to be the Barbarian, and Barbarian's traits are exceptional. Best 2 traits in the game, probably, arguably. But just stat-wise, he just doesn't bring a lot to the table besides his traits. And so even though his traits are very, very good, his HP and his health, or sorry, his HP and his damage are just kind of average, and that's what you expect from a 2 elixir card, right? So I think he's pretty balanced. I mean, his traits are very good. You just need him to complete a team. Now, I will say that he's very, very good as a tank with the full clan team just because he heals so much, especially if you can get him to 3 stars, which is very rare. He is a very, very good damage soaker if he gets to 3 stars with the full clan team. But besides that, he really just doesn't bring much to your team except for his trait tags, and so that's why he's going to be at number 18. At number 17 is P.E.K.K.A. P.E.K.K.A got a complete, you know, 180 refresh this season with 2 entirely new traits to her. The P.E.K.K.A trait, which I do like. She's just, you know, her hit speed is too slow to consistently get kills, and so she doesn't heal that much. And then the brawler trait again, which is really good. But she herself is obviously very slow. It says it right there. Hit speed is very slow. Damage is very good, and if you get enough stars on her plus the brawler trait, she can have a ton of HP. And so she's just a consistent way to deal damage and a consistent way to take damage. And so that's why she falls, you know, more or less at the lower half. But closer to the middle of the team. She's not exceptional. Obviously, she doesn't have an ability. She doesn't do anything crazy for your team. She's very good at the start of the game because she has a lot of HP and does a lot of damage. But, you know, you definitely want goblins 10 times out of 10 when you're starting the game. And then she kind of falls off as the game goes on. And when you get into the end of the game where everybody has a lot of 3 stars, her stats just don't do nearly as much as they do in the beginning and the middle of the game. And so she really falls off hard there. But her traits are good, especially Brawler. And that's what's going to take her to the 17 spot. At 16 is going to be Goblin Machine. Now, since the Goblin Machine nerf, which took away the stuns from his rockets, he has been, you know, either very bad or very slightly below average. Never really, you know, in the upper echelon of cards again. But the Brutalist, the introduction of the Brutalist trait has helped a bit. It gives a different spin to what he does. You know, he doesn't have that Juggernaut trait. He's not a frontline unit who's supposed to take a ton of hits. He can do some good damage by getting hits on other units, and his hit speed isn't awful. And the Goblin trait always helps. You know, the Goblin trait is one of the best in the game just for generating elixir, and so he's going to be a decent card if they could kind of put him back up. If they could give him his stuns back and then find a way to balance him otherwise, I think that'd be really good, because that was kind of the best part about Goblin Machine and why you used him. His damage with those rockets really isn't that great, especially when you have, you know, cards like Clan that can heal, and then other things that let them, you know, kind of survive a lot of rocket shots. It just makes those kind of useless, and without the stun, you're just allowing Rangers to speed up super quickly. So it's very hard to counter Rangers, very hard to counter Blasters, and when you can't get a ton of damage into the back line. And so by taking that away from him, they've kind of made him, you know, almost useless. except for being able to complete the Brutalist trait. And so for that reason, I am going to put him at number 16. At number 15 is going to be Bandit, and I really like Bandit. The Assassin trait is awful, but the Ace trait is really consistent. I made a video on an Ace team, probably a few weeks ago now, a week and a half maybe, and I definitely want to keep playing with it more. I kind of have to find a way to figure out how to generate enough elixir to buy it because it's so expensive with a 5 cost, 2 4 cost, and a 3 cost. But it's very, very good. You can get some really good comps with the Ace trait, and her ability is really consistent, and people just don't play with it enough to really know how good it is, but it's really underrated. She can get a ton of good damage, a ton of stuns. If she's the captain of the team, that helps her heal up a lot more and be able to survive and, just kind of get into the backline and kind of do a lot of damage. And in a way, she can counter, the backline comps that are so strong this season better than any other card can, especially when you pair her with Mega Knight and the Ace trait that, they're in the backline stunning and doing good damage. Which is kind of taking the place of Goblin Machine. And so I think Ace is a really underrated comp. Assassin still isn't doing anything for her. Assassins are just very bad this season. But as a card with her ability, with her stats, she's very, very usable. And with the Ace trait, that just takes her up another notch to make her a pretty decent card. Now, obviously, she's not in the top of the meta. Otherwise, everybody will be playing with her. But it can be a pretty sneaky team when you go for a full Ace. And obviously, Monk didn't get nerfed either. And so you have the Ace. You have the full capability of the Ace with him. And so I think it's honestly a pretty good spot for Bandit right now. She's not completely destroying the game like she was, and she's not complete trash like she was last season, but she's kind of found a good spot to mellow out in this season right here, and that's why she's at number 15. And number 14 is the buddy I was just talking about, which is going to be Mega Knight for very, very similar reasons. Obviously, he has that Brawler tag, which makes him even better, and so he is more contested and harder to get, but the Ace trait is a very consistent trait for survivability, which is what we're kind of lacking this season. From not having the Juggernaut comp, and plus he's able to get to the backline and do some good stuns. So Brawler is a better comp than Ace. Ace is a pretty decent one too, and even though his I've never really felt like his damage was enough to put him into the top cards. It's decent with the buff that we saw last season or 2 seasons ago. I think it was the beginning of season 2 is when they buffed his damage by like 41%, so a pretty considerable buff, but still not enough to make him really, really consistent. His HP is good. He's just not, he's not a game-breaking card, but his traits are good, and he's able to jump and kind of do some things in the back line that not a lot of other troops are able to do, and so that's why he's going to come in at number 14. At number 13 is going to be the Skeleton King. Now, that might seem a bit high due to his traits, because Undead is bad, and Brutalist is decent at best, but his stats, his damage, and his HP, it's very good. And he has, a lot of people actually don't understand how his hit range works. He hits 4 tiles in a diamond shape. So the one right in front of him, the 2 up and adjacent to that, and then he hits 2 in front of him as well. And you can really, really utilize that with the Brutalist trait, but even as an individual card, he can do some really good damage. And of course, he's a 5 elixir card, so you're going to expect him to be better, except for, Golden Knight. That's a different thing entirely. But I've always liked Skeleton King with the stats and the way they built him. Obviously, he's not as broken as he was since, the Undead meta, and then we had the Juggernaut meta for so long. That's just not the same place. He's not in the same place as he was there. He's definitely fallen off a lot just due to his traits falling off. But stat-wise, he is a good card. So if you're running for some reason some kind of Undead comp and some kind of Brutalist comp, he is very good. But because of his traits not being the best, it kind of takes him, kind of right at that middle slot and not up into the upper echelon of cards. So that's why he's at number 13. At number 12 is going to be our good buddy Stab Goblin. Now, Assassins are really bad, but he's a Goblin, and that's all that matters. And he does some really consistent damage. It did get nerfed a lot, but it does... What are you doing? It does do some good damage in the first few rounds, especially, when paired with the other Goblins. You can get some quick, easy wins when you're playing with Spirit Empress, or you can just keep him in as a 1-star and throw some games with King. Just a perfect card for kind of controlling how you want the game to begin. Just a really consistent piece to elixir generation, which is obviously the biggest thing in this game. And even though he's, there actually was that season where Assassins were pretty good. You'd run 4 Juggernauts and then Golden Knight and Goblins behind Assassins, but he's never really been one you use max at 3 stars in the late game. But he's always been a really consistent card, and that's why he slots in right, almost smack dab in the middle of the pack at number 12. At number 11 is going to be Musketeer, and honestly, she could probably be lower, but I didn't want to overreact to her nerf. I feel like the nerf to Witch was much harder than it was to Musketeer. I don't hate the fact that her knockback doesn't push everything back at the same level. I think even just pushing it off a bit more and allowing other cards to crowd in is still decent at 1 and 2 stars. The Superstar trait fell off so hard, which is why you don't really see her used anymore, and the Noble trait has never been anything this season. But overall, she is still a decent card just because of her utility. She does stun a lot, which is rare with the cards this season, but those stuns are just so valuable, especially when you're going up against teams that have very strong cards in their front line, like an Archer Queen or like a Valkyrie or something like that. Now, are people really using her because Superstar fell off? No, but I can't throw her to the ground just because of that. She is still a pretty decent card stat-wise. They did buff her damage as well, which is something that she definitely needed. So until they kind of figure out what to do with Superstar, I haven't been playing with them that much, but I definitely want to more. I feel like there's some good comps that we can kind of work out. I just really wish she still had the Blaster trade because that was so good last season, and unfortunately they had to switch it up. Like, still in the back of my head sometimes I'm like, oh, I need a Blaster, I should go grab Musketeer just for her to be a Superstar, unfortunately. And maybe they might even take away Noble and turn her into a Blaster Superstar or something like that, which would be awesome. But we'll see. For right now, she's just a good stat card that got tweaked a bit, and just people don't really know where she fits in. Plus her traits just really are lacking right now. But overall, she's a decent card. That's why she's at number 11. At number 10 is going to be Royal Giant. Now, like I said with Skeleton Dragons, if I'm playing a card that's not Dark Goblin or Archer Queen for the Ranger comp, it is going to be Royal Giant. And the Giant trait is also pretty consistent. I mean, you just take it for what it is. It's plus 40% HP, but sometimes that's helpful, and that's even more helpful than you get with the Noble trait. So I'd rather him be a Giant than a Noble. And I think it's damage taken. Yeah, it's like 40% less damage taken. But he's just consistent. I mean, he's a ranged card that has a lot of HP, which is what Musketeer was as well, but Musketeer is not really usable, and so you're using, other ranged cards at the front line sometimes, with just the way positioning is different this season, and he's very, very good at that. Plus, the Ranger comp is just so strong. It's just a great spot to be in, which is funny because, you have a Ranger at the bottom, but his other, Skeleton Dragon's other trait and just his ability as a whole makes him so bad. But the Royal Giant is a really consistent card. You get a lot out of him for cheap. He doesn't do a ton of damage, but you don't need him to. He's there for a lot of HP and to give you that Ranger tag and to just soak some hits while doing some decent damage when he can. And that's why he's such a well-rounded card, and I think he fits in really well at number 10. At number 9 on the list, I am going to put Spear Goblin for a lot of reasons. He has always been one of the most consistent cards just based on utility, and his stats are not exceptional. I mean, he's a very weak HP card who does some, consistent pointed damage. But until this season, he was never really used late into the game at 3 stars, but I guess with Goblin Queen, absolutely he was, and with some thrower comps, but he never really added much. But this season, I really feel like he does, just based on traits alone. Being able to have a Goblin pairing that helps him get to high stars really boosts the King by giving him a consistent way to get to 3 and 4 star cards, plus adding that Blaster synergy to the Wizard, and you can add it to Princess, who's one of the best cards in the game. No spoilers, but it's just a really, really balanced stat-wise card, and just the traits alone are what carry it to the top of the closer to the top of the list. Plus, you're just using them to generate that extra elixir at the beginning of the game with Spirit Empress, and any ruler, but especially Spirit Empress. He just adds a lot to the game. I've always, he's always been one of my favorite cards, just as a consistent way to generate elixir to activate good traits, and that's why he's going to be closer to the top of the list at number 9. At number 8 is going to be the E-Giant. And he did not get nerfed in the same way that the Witch and the Musketeer did. Along with Monk, he was kind of left alone, and only Superstar got nerfed for him. But the Monk and the Electro Giant are still a decent 2 out of 4 Superstar pairing. And you can use that in a lot of different comps. You can use it in a 4 out of 4 Ace comp. You can use it in a different, mixed trait comp where you have a lot of traits going on. You throw in the Royal Giant, you get that Giant buff as well going for him, and he just provides a lot of utility. Stunning is the best ability in the game. Cards that can stun are so incredibly strong, and so him being able to stun the entire board is what makes him so good, and that's why he's at 8 alone. His stats aren't exceptional. He really does not do a lot of damage as a card, even as his traits are not elite right now in the current meta. Just the fact that he can stun the entire board and consistently get some good stuns off is enough to carry him to the upper echelon of cards, and that's why he slots in at number 8. At number 7 is one of my favorite cards of all time, the Executioner. So consistent. Same trait since the beginning. I actually don't even know. I think he's been like tweaked like once, maybe nerfed a bit or buffed once or something like that. But he has been a very, very consistent card. I just love playing. Obviously, I love playing in the normal game. He's a level 16 for me. I love playing Hog XC NATO, but in this game, he's just as fun to play with. He gets a ton of range when he's paired with a blaster. Just really consistent damage. I love playing him in an ace comp. Throw in Princess there. You just get a ton of damage going. If you can make him the captain, he just goes insane. And he's just a very, very consistent card. For what he does, he's a very good value for 3 elixir. Absolutely, I've always loved just how, getting a 3-star X and then just watching him melt teams down. Obviously, Blaster is a very, very strong ranged trait in the game right now, and Ace is pretty consistent, pretty underrated, but still very consistent, especially when you get it 4 out of 4 and you can get a very strong captain on the board. Executioner has always just been a staple of merge tactics to me. I hope they don't ever remove him for a season, because that would make me very sad. But he is always a fun one to play with. Stats are very well balanced, and his traits are very good, and that's why he's going to be near the top of the list at number 7. At number 6 is going to be Wizard for very, very similar reasons. Basically, the only thing that's different is that his clan trait is way better than the ace trait, and that's what makes him to the tier above. Obviously, a 2 elixir card gives him a lot of value for merging and just a cheap card to get higher stars, and he just does really consistent damage. With the pairing with the blaster, whether it's with Princess or Executioner or Spear Goblin, he just does a ton of damage and splash damage at that, which makes him very valuable going into some, he was very good at countering Witch, just because of splash damage, and obviously Witch isn't in the meta anymore, but he still does well against some clumped cards, especially against battle machines who have a lot of buildings on the board, and he just has a ton of survivability with the clan ability. Like I said, without having stuns, Wizard being part of a clan can just, heal through any damage that gets sent to him from Goblin Machine or other ranged cards, and he just continues to fire fireballs at your team over and over and over again, just slowly melting them down. And he's just very, very consistent, very strong, great stats for a 2-cost card. Just the fact that his damage, it's a lower number. It's not even 100, but he does it to like a whole radius of cards. It's just so good and so consistent, and that's why he's going to be at number 6. At number 5 is the menace of Season 2, the Dark Goblin, the strongest card in the game for a long time. He's seen a little bit of a pullback this season just because of the strength of the clan units, but he's still used in my favorite comps. I use him in clan to pair with the Archer Queen, and he's just a very, very, very good card for cheap for 3 elixir, and the fact that you can get him for free now, up to 4 stars with the fact that they tweaked the Goblin synergy to give him to you just by having 2 out of 4 Goblins is just so good. I've gotten 4-star Goblins by playing a clan team with King. There's 4-star Dark Goblins by playing a clan team with King, and it is just awesome to see a 4-star card with a ruler that has trouble generating enough elixir to even get 3-star cards sometimes. So he is just a very, very consistent boost to your team, especially if you can keep him on the board for most of the game. He's just always been very, very good. A staple of the game. The Ranger trait is what carries him to the top, but also just having that Goblin tag to give him that extra bit of utility. Like I said, he's the one I choose to activate Ranger with Queen if he's available. And the fact that you can get him at a 1-star and then just throw him with another Goblin, and you'll have a 2 or 3-star Dark Goblin in just a few rounds without having to search for him in the shop is so good. And honestly, the fact that you have a really good card that you can generate technically for free just by having another Goblin on the board is not, it's barely short of broken. And that's why I have him at number 5. Now, at number 4 is going to be the Monk. His ability is just so strong, especially at 3 stars, 4 stars definitely, but 3 stars for sure. And obviously Superstar took it down a lot, so you can't repeat his ability as much. But if you get him with a 4 out of 4 ace comp and another Superstar paired with him, he can solo an entire team. You can just throw him out there and let the entire team just deal damage to him, and he's just going to reflect it all back and melt the entire team. Because Superstar is down, you don't really see him as much just because it's the full comp is just not super strong. And at a 5-cost card, he doesn't really offer a ton outside of his traits. And so, stat wise, he's good. I mean, he's got good stats. He's a lot of HP, and reflecting the damage is good. Plus he does some good melee damage as well. But the real reason you want him is because of his ability. And until they put Superstar kind of back at a more balanced position, he's not going to be number 1, but I think he easily could be. I think he definitely was at the beginning of the season. Just a very, very consistent card. And because they actually didn't nerf him at all, they just tweaked the Superstar trait. I still think he's very good, just not as usable. And that's what you'll see throughout the theme of this list. You'll see a lot of cards that are used a lot at the lower half, and a lot of cards that you're never used at the upper half. But usability is only a certain aspect. If I made a list of cards based on usability, I mean, what is that going to tell you? So I include that as a factor, but you still have objectively good cards based on stats and abilities and some decent traits that are going to be at the top of the list, even if they aren't used as much in the current meta. And because the Merge Tactics meta changes weekly, it seems, we might see him right back on top next week. We never really know. But for now, I think he fits in pretty well at number 4. Number 3 is going to be one of the most consistent cards in the history of the game, and that is Valkyrie. If you think of the best traits, you have Clan Avenger, which was the best trait for the entirety of Season 1, the best team. You had Juggernauts, which were the best trait for the entirety of Season 2. And now Clan is back on top, and Valkyrie has been a staple of that the entire game. Valkyrie has always been one of the most consistent cards. And this season, I genuinely think she is the best tank. Like I said, Brutalist is a pretty decent modifier that you can use when other cards aren't available. And Clan is by far the best. So you throw those two together, you get a ton of value out of a 3 elixir card. She heals at a 3-star Valkyrie, heals so much. It is unbelievable. She can take on basically an entire team as long as she has the 4 out of 4 clan, and she can heal through almost all the damage she takes, which is awesome because of how hard it is to find cards with good survivability this season. Obviously, with 4 out of 4 clan just boosts her hit speed as well, makes her incredibly valuable. You don't use her for damage, you don't need to. She has a ton of HP for how cheap she is. Part of one of the best traits in the game. There really isn't much to say. I mean, her splash damage, she's just so consistent all around, has always been since the beginning of the season, or the beginning of the game, and obviously the season as well. And that's why she's at number 3. At number 2, I am actually going to put Princess. The only reason she's not number one, is based on consistency for me, just because, you want to get value out of her with her splash damage, but people know how to position things away from Princess too consistently, and so she doesn't always get the maximum value she can. But stat-wise, objectively, she might be the best card in the game because she just does so much damage with the Blaster trait. Changing her to Blaster was awesome. She was really, really good as a Ranger, but Blaster, and they tweaked a few things with her hit speed and damage to kind of make her a better troop as a Blaster as well, which I think was a great idea. And I think she's just very, very consistent. With dealing good damage, just lacking some consistency with how often she's able to hit multiple troops at once and take advantage of her splash damage. Because if you get her shooting at one card, and again, she's always going to shoot the card furthest away, so if you don't have a good protection in front of her, then she's really going to struggle. But if you can do that, you throw her in a clan team with the Prince, and you had the best team in the game right there, obviously. She's very strong, very contested, obviously, because of how good she is, hard to get, but she really fits into almost any comp. Has some decent hit points this season. And just very, very good damage, provided that you can take advantage of her splash capabilities. And that's why I have her at number 2. Best card in the game this season, and it's flashbacks to the Season 1, but Archer Queen, in my opinion, is the best card in the game. Best tag in Clan, probably 3rd or 4th best with Ranger. You got Clan, Brawler, Clan definitely number 1, and you kind of got Brawler, Ranger, Blaster kind of mixed in there. You can kind of put 2, 3, 4 wherever you want to. But this is definitely, Ranger is definitely one of the best. And, a ton of HP, really good damage, hits multiple units at once. She can snipe back 9 troops. She has an exceptional ability. She speeds up. Her ability pairs perfectly with her Ranger trait by allowing her to get that extra hit speed from her 50% and then just get turned into an absolute unit when she comes out of her ability, shooting at, 30 times speed and having full health again. So strong. And honestly, I hesitate to say she's broken. She's just a very good card, and this is what a 5-cost card should be. Does she need a nerf? Probably. The best card in the game most often just needs a nerf, just even if it's not exceptionally broken, just to kind of bring it back in range with everything else. But she's just always been so consistent in the clan comp. Even last season, we were playing with her in some clan comps, and just the fact that clan is back on top is something I'm not necessarily mad at. I think it's a very fun team, a very cheap team, and exciting to play with. And I think she just, by having Archer rotate out, it really got a good spot for Archer Queen to move into with that Ranger trait, and I think that's been way better for her than Avenger. Avenger was really broken in Season 1 because of how good Bandit was, but I think Ranger is a better spot for Archer Queen because it doesn't turn her into a one-man show as much as Avenger did, but she just does some consistent damage. Granted, the rest of your team is still alive. I think her ability is pretty balanced. There's still some ways that you can hit through, with animations starting before her ability does and things like that. So I don't think her ability is what takes her. over the edge. I just think that her strength within her traits is very, very good. And so if they tweak Clan and Ranger, especially Clan, if they tweak that a bit to bring it down from, the way first place it's in, then that would probably be enough to balance Archer Queen as well. But there are my thoughts on the best cards in the game. Let me know your opinions in the comments below. Let me know what I completely messed up on, and let me know what you think I got right. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to drop it a like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Thank you guys for watching as always, and I will see you in the next one.